Picture this. You walk into your local grocery store expecting to grab the basics for the week. But instead of stocked shelves, you find emptiness. No milk, no eggs, even bread is nowhere to be found. It sounds like something out of a nightmare, right? Here's the chilling truth. As we step into April 2025, this is not just a fear. This is our reality. From dairy and meat to fresh produce and grains, America is grappling with a devastating food crisis. Across the nation, grocery aisles are turning into ghost towns for essential items. Experts say it's the fallout of a perfect storm of disasters, affecting every link in the food chain. Think this sounds bad? Here's the terrifying part. It could get worse. Why are these staples vanishing without warning? How long will this unsettling trend last? And more importantly, what can you do to protect your family? Prepare yourself as we uncover the 8 shocking grocery items disappearing from stores this month. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end because being unprepared isn't an option. The time to act is now. Don't look away because some of these surprises may hit closer to home than you think. 1. Beef. Alright, steak lovers, this one's gonna hurt. Have you noticed that those juicy ribeyes or hearty briskets are becoming a rare sight at your grocery store? And when you do find them, the prices are jaw-droppingly high. It's not in your head. Beef is slipping out of reach for millions of Americans, and the reason behind this shortage might just make you think twice about your next barbecue plans. The blame doesn't fall on a single culprit. Instead, it's a deadly cocktail of events, starting with Mother Nature herself. For years, the Great Plains and western United States were pummeled by relentless droughts, drying up pastures and hiking the price of feed. Cattle ranchers were backed into a corner, with no choice but to downsize their herds massively from 2021 through 2023. To put it bluntly, they started selling off their cattle in droves to avoid watching them starve. At first, this sell-off created an illusion of abundance. Do you remember seeing stores loaded with beef back in 2022? That was the calm before the storm. Fast forward to 2025, and the effects of that mass liquidation have caught up with us in full force. The U.S. cattle herd has withered to its smallest size since 1951. That's over 7 decades. Millions fewer cows are grazing in pastures, and no amount of magical thinking can bring them back overnight. And here's the terrifying part. Even if ranchers began rebuilding their herds right now, it takes a minimum of 2 years for a calf to grow to market weight. But here's the kicker. Not everyone's eager to start breeding again. Many ranchers, still scarred by the financial blows they took during the drought, remain cautious. And worse, some female cattle, which could have been used for breeding, were sent to slaughter to meet falling production demands. This domino effect has driven prices to insane levels. The average cost of uncooked beef steaks is over $3 more per pound than it was just a few years ago. Family packs of ground beef, which families once tossed into carts without a second thought, now they're forcing shoppers to ask, do we really need this for dinner? When briskets are pushing $100, up from $50 just a couple of years prior, it feels like a bad dream. Even restaurants aren't immune. Prices for burgers and steaks have climbed at your favorite joints. Or worse, portion sizes have shrunk. And no, this isn't just about empty shelves. You'll often find the cuts you're craving, if you're willing to pay an absurd premium. The scariest part? Relief is years away. Analysts warn that herds won't fully recover until at least 2026 or beyond, meaning beef shortages and soaring prices are here to stay. Summer BBQs, tailgating parties, grilling season, we're all going to feel this squeeze. What can you do about it? Budget wisely, hunt for sales, and stock up when you can. Or you may have to reimagine your meals entirely. Pork, chicken, or even plant-based proteins might be your only solace. For now, unless you're ready for sticker shock, you might want to get used to that sirloin turning into a distant memory. 2. Poultry, chicken and turkey. If you were planning to pivot from beef to chicken or turkey to save a few bucks, here's some grim news for you. Poultry is no longer the cheap, abundant protein it once was. Chicken is America's most consumed meat, and turkey is a must-have for Thanksgiving. But in 2025, both are in crisis. Picture this. Bird flu outbreaks have been ravaging chicken and turkey farms for years, and the consequences aren't subtle. Chicken wings, boneless breasts, even whole turkeys have become harder to find, and the prices, well, they'll make your bank account cry. The bird flu hit especially hard starting in 2022, wiping out millions of birds. Turkey flocks were devastated. 5 million turkeys were lost in just the first half of that year, and that number only got worse. Some farms were forced to cull entire flocks to stop the spread. By the time Thanksgiving rolled around, finding a bird big enough to feed the family felt like winning the lottery. Prices soared, and desperate shoppers were left either empty-handed or shelling out jaw-dropping amounts for poultry. Was chicken spared the carnage? Not really. The same bird flu that turned turkey farms into graveyards also decimated chicken breeding stock. Combine that with sky-high feed prices during 2022, And poultry producers were caught in a vicious cycle. Many of them couldn't afford to expand flocks, leading to shortages that have lingered for years. Here we are in 2025, and the fallout is still gripping our grocery stores. Prices for chicken breasts hit record highs, and even basic cuts like thighs and drumsticks are testing budgets nationwide. Boneless chicken breasts that once cost $1.26 per pound now averages $1.75 or more, and the price curve remains steep. And don't even get me started on chicken wings. You thought the wing shortage during the sports season in 2021 was bad? That was just the tip of the iceberg. Sporadic shortages of wings and other cuts have left both supermarkets and restaurant menus scrambling to meet demand. Some restaurants have even switched to bizarre alternatives like cauliflower wings just to stay in business. The good news, if it can be called that, is there's a light at the end of this tunnel. Chicken flocks grow back faster than cattle herds, and producers are trying to biosecure their farms to fend off future outbreaks. By the end of 2025, you might see prices stabilize, but don't hold your breath for turkey. Every fall, turkey farms remain vulnerable to bird flu, and Thanksgiving will likely remain a pricey holiday for years to come. Your best defense against this poultry predicament? Flexibility. Try different chicken cuts, experiment with turkey alternatives, or even give plant-based options a shot once or twice a week. These shortages are a wake-up call. We can no longer take affordable chicken and turkey for granted. 3. Lettuce and leafy greens. You thought you could avoid all this drama by sticking to a fresh salad? Think again. Lettuce, spinach, and other leafy greens have joined the growing list of missing grocery staples, and their scarcity might make you reevaluate your grocery list entirely. It first started in 2022, a year that lettuce growers in the Salinas Valley of California will never forget. A devastating crop disease, INSEVs, impatiens necrotic spot virus, paired with sweltering weather obliterated harvests. INSEVs like the plague for lettuce, spreading through tiny insects called thrips. It kills plants fast, leaving no chance of recovery. And the heat? It gave those thrips a population boom while completely stressing out the crops. Farmers fought back with pesticides and farming tactics, but it wasn't enough, especially for organic farmers who had minimal options to combat the disease. Entire fields were plowed under, fields that were supposed to keep America's salad bowls full all season long. The winter supply, usually sourced from Yuma, Arizona, wasn't much better thanks to water shortages caused by relentless droughts. By late 2022, grocery stores everywhere were reeling. Shelves, usually stacked with fresh, vibrant lettuce, were barren, or worse, stocked with limp and unappealing heads priced astronomically high. Restaurants took notice too, with chains substituting cabbage or cutting lettuce out of their dishes altogether. Prices jumped so high in 2022 and 2023 that some jokingly called lettuce a luxury item, but for families who rely on healthy meals, it was no laughing matter. Here in 2025, lettuce isn't entirely gone, but it isn't stable either. Prices remain higher than pre-2022 levels, and any warm summer could ignite another outbreak. INCF is relentless, and experts warn that lettuce farming in its traditional form might not survive long-term without radical intervention. Until then, adaptability is your best friend. Swap lettuce for other greens like kale, Swiss chard, or cabbage. Or, if you've got the space, grow your own greens. Even a small pot on your balcony can produce enough for a few salads a week. Lettuce may seem like a simple grocery item, but its struggle is another reminder that our food system is far more fragile than we want to believe. Stay ahead by keeping your greens versatile and sustainable. 4. Milk and dairy products. Got milk? Or should I say, can you even find milk? If your morning cereal routine is turning into a scavenger hunt, you're not alone. Milk, butter, cheese, and cream are disappearing from shelves in a way that feels absolutely unnerving. America's dairy aisle has become a battleground, and the story behind it is darker than you'd think. It all started with a shrinking dairy herd. By 2023, the number of dairy cows in the U.S. dropped by over 40,000 head, and milk production essentially flatlined. Why? Farmers were pushed to the brink, with droughts hammering feed supplies and driving costs through the proverbial barn roof. To make things worse, extreme heat waves swept through key dairy-producing states, leaving already stressed cows producing less milk. It's simple biology, folks. Cows are living creatures that don't exactly thrive when temperatures skyrocket. And the fallout? A devastating ripple effect on dairy products. Butter shortages exploded in late 2024, with cold storage stocks at their lowest since 2017. Social media lit up with frustrated shoppers sharing photos of half-empty dairy cases and store signs limiting packs of butter per customer. Before you ask, yes, even baking has been affected. Imagine preparing for the holiday season, only to discover you can't even find butter. One frustrated home cook said they visited 4 stores before finally snagging the last sad block of generic brand butter. Meanwhile, milk prices are climbing dangerously high. A gallon of milk is now a luxury for some households, with prices surpassing $4 in many areas. That's if you can find it at all. The shortages are so dire that even CEOs from major companies like Kroger and Walmart are being grilled about aggressive price hikes. Could there be corporate greed involved? Maybe. But the heart of the problem is that there's just not enough milk to go around. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. America actually exports a significant amount of its milk and cheese to meet global demand. That means domestic markets are even tighter, and what stays on shelves comes at a hefty price tag. Cheese lovers, brace yourselves, because the trend shows no sign of reversing anytime soon. USDA has hinted at only modest gains in milk production by the end of 2025. Unfortunately, it takes years for farms to rebuild herds, and many farmers are understandably hesitant after struggling for so long. Relief might eventually come with falling feed costs, but for now, don't be surprised if you see empty shelves where dairy staples used to be. Want some advice? If you're looking for workarounds, consider stocking up on UHT or shelf-stable milk. Powdered milk is another great backup if fresh milk is constantly sold out. Butter shortages? Freeze it whenever you catch a good sale. And if all else fails, explore alternatives. Plant-based milks like soy, almond, or oat have never been more popular or necessary. It's a shifting world out there, and the dairy aisle is becoming a stark reminder that we can't take these everyday items for granted. Stay vigilant, folks, because milk might just be the next victim of this grocery showdown. 5. Eggs. Eggs. Humble, versatile, and oh so essential, or at least they were. This one cuts deep, because over the past year the humble egg has turned into a luxury item. And no, this isn't just supply chain issues. Something far darker is at play here. It all boils down to one nightmare of a word: avian influenza. This disease has swept through poultry farms like wildfire since 2022, striking terror into the heart of farmers and consumers alike. When this virus hits, every chicken on an infected farm has to be culled. Not some, all of them. The devastation has been mind-boggling. Over 145 million birds slaughtered, most of them egg-laying hens. And when the hens go, so do the eggs. By early 2023, supermarket egg coolers were bare. Prices skyrocketed to dizzying heights, with some shoppers paying over $5 for a dozen eggs, which is more than double what they paid just a year before. Empty shelves even led to rationing, with stores limiting customers to 2 cartons of eggs apiece. Nationwide panic ensued as people desperately hoarded eggs for breakfast, baking, and everything in between. But wait, there's more. Just when it seemed like things were stabilizing in mid-2023 with new hens entering the system, Mother Nature brought another swift blow. The winter of 2024-25 saw a resurgence of bird flu outbreaks, wiping out millions more birds. Entire states were reporting flare-ups, with over 26 million new losses in just the first 2 months of this year. The consequences? Not only are eggs scarce, but the prices are set to climb another 41% in 2025. And this cycle of slaughter and scarcity shows no sign of stopping. Migratory birds are spreading the virus, and until scientists find an effective vaccine for poultry, egg shortages may become our grim new normal. If you're wondering what you can do to survive this madness, there are some simple but clever options. Many stores restock their eggs early in the morning, so if you're determined to find them, hit the aisles as soon as those doors open. Alternatively, experiment with egg substitutes for baking, like ground flaxseed or commercial egg replacers. For breakfast, get creative with alternatives like yogurt, oatmeal, or peanut butter. And here's a pro tip you might not have thought of before. You can freeze eggs. Crack them into a container, beat lightly, and freeze them for future use. The egg drought won't last forever, but the road ahead is uncertain at best. Keep your fridge stocked when you can, and don't overlook the value of thinking outside the carton. 6. Oranges and orange juice. What's breakfast without a glass of orange juice? For many Americans, it's starting to feel like a distant memory. Yes, oranges and their byproducts are the next casualties in this era of grocery shortages, and this one hits home for anyone who loves their daily dose of vitamin C. To understand why, we've got to look south to Florida, the beating heart of U.S. orange production, or at least it used to be. Over the past decade, Florida's citrus groves have been hit by a double-edged sword of catastrophe. First, a bacterial disease called citrus greening. This insidious disease has slowly infected tree after tree, killing them outright, or slashing their fruit production to almost nothing. Now, picture that happening across millions of trees. Then came the hurricanes. Irma in 2017, Ian in 2022, Milton in 2024. These storms tore through Florida's groves, destroying what little fruit remained. Did you know Florida's orange harvest this past year was the lowest since 1937? That's right. Orange production has been cut in half compared to previous years, leaving the industry all but crippled. For consumers, this translates to skyrocketing orange juice prices, fewer fresh oranges in produce sections, and an overall drop in quality and variety. Imported oranges are filling in some gaps, but even those come at a steep cost. Your bargain brand orange juice isn't so bargain anymore, and premium brands might be completely out of reach. What's the solution? Experts are scrambling to fight citrus greening and urge Florida growers to replant. But disease-resistant trees take years to grow. Some fear it could be decades before we return to anything resembling pre-crisis levels of supply. Until then, consider switching to other drinks like apple juice. And if you're sticking with OJ, try frozen concentrate, as it's often cheaper and easier to find. Use any fresh oranges you do score wisely. This is not the time to forget about that lone orange at the back of your fridge. America's citrus is under siege, but with smart choices we can make it through this orange apocalypse. 7. Bread and flour, a crisis brewing. Bread, it's not just food, it's the food, the staff of life as they call it, staple of every pantry. But imagine you walk to the bread aisle and the shelves are only half stocked. Or worse, your go-to loaf is gone without a trace. Hate to break it to you folks, but this isn't some far-fetched doomsday scenario. This is real. Right now, bread and flour are teetering on the edge of catastrophe, and here's why you should be worried. This all goes back to two big issues that have a stranglehold on the global wheat supply. First, the war in Ukraine, a war that's dragged on now for 3 long years. If you're wondering why that matters, here's the grim reality. Ukraine and Russia were once powerhouses of the world's grain production, exporting a huge portion of the wheat the world depends on. But when conflict erupted in 2022, exports from that region plummeted. If they couldn't ship their wheat, the global supply chain couldn't function. Even though the United States doesn't rely heavily on imports from that region, grain is a global market. One part of the world takes a hit, everyone feels the ripple effect. And while the U.S. initially thought it could ride out these high prices, another disaster hit closer to home. Extreme drought gripped the American plains from Kansas to Texas in 2022, absolutely gutting the wheat crop. Some farmers reported harvests at less than half of the normal yield due to scorching heat. By mid-2023, things hadn't gotten much better. Fast forward to today, and the bread aisle is where you start to really feel the pain. Prices for a basic loaf? Up by at least 15% since 2023. And it's not just the cost. It's the dwindling options. Local bakeries can't keep up. They're raising prices or flat out scaling back production because they can't get enough flour. Even major manufacturers are starting to show signs of strain. Have you noticed those big displays of fluffy white bread looking not so fluffy lately? That's if you're lucky enough to find your favorite bread to begin with. And if it starts with bread, you better believe it trickles down to everything else. Crackers, pasta, cookies, cakes. It all depends on flour, and flour itself is no better off. Specialty baking flours are disappearing, whole wheat varieties are showing up less often, and prices, even on the cheapest brands, are climbing steadily. How long could this go on? That's the terrifying part. Global wheat stocks are shrinking, weather patterns aren't stabilizing, and with El Niño disrupting agriculture worldwide, every harvest feels like a gamble. Experts warn another bad year for U.S. wheat could push us into actual bread shortages, not just fewer options at the store. If this sounds like a slow-motion nightmare, you're not wrong. It's time to take stock of what's happening and prepare. One piece of advice: stop wasting bread. Freeze what you can't use right away. And if your grocery store brand disappears, learn to bake. That's right, but don't get comfortable yet, because flour shortages could put a damper on that plan too. Real talk? Bread's no longer a given, and we might be inching toward the moment when that staff of life becomes a luxury. But hold on, we're not done talking about how the grocery store is betraying us. There's another staple, one that fuels whole cuisines, whole cultures, and whole families. And it, too, is vanishing from shelves. 8. Rice, a silent crisis unfolding. Now, if the bread breakdown sent a shiver down your spine, rice is about to leave you in shock. Rice shortages are hitting hard, and it's easy to think, not here, not in the U.S., but don't relax just yet. The situation is dire and it's spreading faster than you think. This rice crisis came out of nowhere for most people, but really? The perfect storm has been brewing for years. The spark that lit the fire came in 2023, when India, the world's largest exporter of rice, announced a total ban on certain types of rice exports. Now, India isn't just any player in the rice market. We're talking about a country responsible for exporting 25% of the world's rice. Why did they shut the cargo gates? A combination of drought, hammering their domestic crops, food insecurity, and crushing political pressure in the lead-up to elections. Their government decided Indian citizens came first. And the rest of the world? Well, the rest of the world could fend for itself. And fend for ourselves we did. Poorly. This caused a domino effect that shocked markets everywhere. Cities with significant South Asian populations in the U.S. saw pure chaos. Shoppers at places like Costco and Sam's Club acted like it was Black Friday for rice bags. Social media exploded with images of people climbing store shelves just to snag the last 20-pound bag. Entire shelves of basmati and jasmine rice were cleared out within hours. But this didn't stop at immigrant grocery stores or specialty markets. Mainstream suppliers also started feeling the crunch. By the end of 2023, even restaurants were impacted. Your favorite sushi spot? Yup, their rice costs went up. Indian buffets? Cutting corners. Think you're immune because you use good old American-grown rice from Arkansas or California? Think again. It's not the same. Medium or short-grain rice doesn't swap seamlessly with long-grain Asian varieties that so many cuisines depend on. Even as 2024 rolled on, the situation didn't improve much. By then, people were panicking less, but prices stayed sky-high because global supply simply couldn't keep up with demand. India loosened the ban in late 2024, allowing tiny shipments to squeeze through international ports, but with strings attached, they started charging more. Way more. Even today, don't be surprised if the humble 20-pound bag of your favorite rice feels more like a luxury purchase than a grocery store staple. Meanwhile, weather continues to wreak havoc across other producer countries. Thailand's rice fields? Drought-stricken. China? Flooded. The global rice market is teetering on the brink, and experts warn if we suffer even one more major crop failure in 2025, we could see another wave of desperate hoarding and empty shelves. What can you do? First, don't hoard. That kind of panic only fuels the fire, but a pantry backup of 10 or 20 pounds stored properly in a sealed bin? That's just smart planning. Second, get creative. Experiment with grains like quinoa, barley, or couscous as substitutes. Even broken rice, which is less appealing but still perfectly edible, can work wonders for dishes like rice pudding or congee. Most importantly, don't waste. Cook only what you'll eat and reuse leftovers. Leftover rice becomes fried rice. Party trick? Turn it into a whole new meal. Whatever you do, hold on tight, because the great rice vanish isn't over yet. The new reality of grocery shopping, from bread to rice and countless items in between, the grocery shelves of 2025 are telling us a story of a deeply interconnected food system under strain. Climate change, geopolitical upheavals, and supply chain vulnerabilities have all contributed to a stark reality. The staples we once took for granted may no longer be guaranteed. The solution isn't panic, but preparation. Being adaptable, resourceful, and mindful of waste can make a difference for individuals and communities alike. What's clear is this: grocery shopping is no longer just a checklist. It's become a reflection of a changing world.